In just weeks, Spain, Switzerland, and now India have all walked away from America's most advanced fighter, the F-35. These weren't minor contracts. Together, the canceled deals represent roughly $25 billion in lost revenue, decades of maintenance fees and strategic leverage, all vanishing into the hands of U.S. rivals. The trigger? Donald Trump's tariffs. The same maximum pressure strategy he thought would force foreign governments into line is now driving them into the arms of other suppliers. Russia, China, and Europe. And this is more than just lost sales. When nations stop buying U.S. weapons, they stop depending on used parts, U.S. software updates, U.S. training, and crucially, U.S. political influence over their militaries. It's a ripple effect that could permanently weaken Washington's grip on both NATO and the Indo-Pacific. India. The Indo-Pacific's breaking point of the three cancellations, India stings the most. In 2025, no Asian leader had been closer to Washington's inner circle than Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He sat across from Donald Trump in the Oval Office, met repeatedly with Vice President J.D. Vance, and hosted senior U.S. delegations in New Delhi. The relationship was deliberate, strategic, and deep, covering trade, energy, and defense. For years, India had been one of the most valuable customers for the U.S. defense industry. Since 2008, it signed over $20 billion in arms deals with American companies: C-17 Globemaster, transport aircraft, P-8I Poseidon maritime patrol planes, Apache and Chinook helicopters, advanced artillery systems, cutting-edge surveillance gear beyond. Purchases: India participated in regular joint military drills, Yudh Abhyas, with the U.S. Army, the Malabar naval exercises with Japan and Australia, and even granted U.S. warships refueling rights in its ports. The next logical step was the $3.6 billion F-35 deal, a leap from buying support aircraft to deploying fifth-generation stealth fighters. Washington saw it as central to its Indo-Pacific strategy, positioning India as a counterweight to China's growing military reach. U.S. officials were even prepared to bypass India's strict MRFA procurement rules to make it happen. That vision collapsed almost overnight. And the cause wasn't fighters. It was oil. The Russian crude dispute, even as Western sanctions tried to choke off Moscow's revenues during the war in Ukraine. India kept buying discounted Russian oil, millions of barrels each month. It refined the crude domestically, powering its own economy, and in some cases exported refined fuel abroad, keeping Russian energy flowing through global markets. In 2024, India spent a staggering $49 billion on Russian crude. That money kept its refineries running and kept the Kremlin's export revenues alive, blunting U.S. sanctions. For Washington, this wasn't just about fuel. It was about control. Sanctions are designed to strangle an adversary's war financing. India's purchases weakened that strategy, and with them, America's ability to dictate global oil flows and geopolitical alignment inside the White House. Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saw India's stance as outright defiance. Trump called it unacceptable. Bessent accused India of not being a great global actor and warned that continued imports from Russia would have serious consequences. Tariff war. Those consequences arrived quickly. First, Trump slapped 25% duties on Indian exports. Weeks later, he doubled them to 50%. The message was clear: stop buying Russian oil, or your economy will bleed. India refused to yield. Officials pointed out that other U.S. partners were also importing Russian energy in various forms, and insisted they were acting in the nation's best interest. Trump's warning widened into a threat against the entire BRICS bloc: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. saying all would face similar tariffs if they kept trading with Moscow. The cancellation in this climate, India froze the F-35 deal. If New Delhi now turns to Russian or Chinese fifth-generation fighters, the damage will be far greater than one lost sale. Strategic reach. Rivals gain greater influence from the Arabian Sea to the South China Sea. Naval complications. U.S. joint operations become harder, coordination weaker. Economic impact. The defense industry loses a fast-growing market and decades of dollar-denominated contracts. Intelligence gap. India's geography is critical for monitoring China and Pakistan. Strained ties could limit U.S. access. Quad. Credibility. Without India's full commitment, the U.S.-Japan-Australia security bloc looks far less formidable. For Washington, losing India would be a fundamental blow to its Indo-Pacific posture, one that tariffs alone cannot fix. Spain. NATO loyalty tested while the Indo-Pacific crisis unfolds. Europe is delivering its own shock. Spain, a NATO member guarding the entrance to the Mediterranean and the North Atlantic, has officially rejected the F-35. For decades, Madrid hosted U.S. naval assets, joined NATO missions, and bought American aircraft. The planned purchase wasn't just about fighters. It would have tied Spain's Air Force into the U.S. defense supply chain for 40 years. Spare parts, software updates, weapons integration, pilot training. Instead, Spain is putting its 10.5 billion euros, $12 billion, fighter budget toward either the Eurofighter, Typhoon, or the Franco-German Future Combat Air System, FCAS. It's more than a procurement choice. It's a statement. Europe wants defense sovereignty. Free from U.S. political strings. Switzerland. Neutral but not compliant, even famously neutral. Switzerland has joined the revolt. In 2022, Bern signed a deal for 36 F-35A jets worth 7.3 billion Swiss francs, $9.1 billion, the largest defense purchase in its history. It was supposed to lock Switzerland into decades of close cooperation with the Pentagon and Lockheed Martin. Now, Swiss lawmakers are openly debating canceling the order. Why? Trump's tariffs hit Swiss exports with rates up to 39%. The fixed price. F-35 contract now faces a cost increase of 1.5 billion francs, $1.9 billion. Swiss public opinion remains deeply skeptical of the jet, and major defense deals can go to a referendum. If Switzerland walks away, the blow to U.S. defense credibility will be enormous, and a clear sign to other allies that contracts with Washington are not politically safe. The strategic cost each canceled order doesn't just erase revenue, it erodes strategic cohesion. NATO interoperability suffers as member fleets diverge. Intelligence sharing becomes more complex. Long-term maintenance contracts, the real profit engine, vanish. Rivals step in with their own hardware, training, and influence, and theirs. A cultural shift underway. More European governments are asking, why rely on U.S. systems that come with kill switches, foreign software control, and the threat of sanctions cutting off parts? Spain's outright rejection and Switzerland's public defiance fit that mindset perfectly. From allies to customers, Washington didn't stumble into this crisis by accident. The Trump administration's combination of tariff wars, aggressive arms sales tactics, and pay up or else diplomacy has left allies feeling less like partners and more like customers to be exploited. For decades, the U.S. defense network relied on mutual trust, shared security goals, and political alignment. Now, those pillars are shaking. The question isn't just whether America can keep selling the F-35. It's whether it can still keep its closest allies in the fold when they believe they have better, safer, and more politically independent options elsewhere. And here's the danger. If others follow Spain, Switzerland, and India's lead, The shift away from U.S. defense dominance could become permanent, and no amount of last-minute diplomacy will bring it back.